The restaurant froze the moment she said it. $10,000. One weekend. Pretend to be my boyfriend. The grease-stained single dad blinked, thinking he'd misheard. A CEO in heels offering him that kind of money? In front of her board? But the look in her eyes wasn't arrogance. It was desperation. What he didn't know was that this one reckless yes would change 3 lives forever. So tell me, if you were him, would you take the deal? Stay with us, because what happens next will leave you questioning what love and money are really worth. And hey, if stories like this make you believe second chances can start anywhere, tap that heart and share it forward. The rain had just stopped when Ethan Cole pulled his dented pickup to the curb outside the Grand Meridian Hotel. Inside, lights glittered like stars trapped in chandeliers. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not in his grease-stained jacket, not with a delivery box of fresh seafood, and certainly not with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, who'd begged to come along because he couldn't afford a babysitter tonight. "We'll be quick, okay?" he murmured. Lily nodded, clutching her stuffed bunny, her eyes wide at the golden glow spilling from the lobby. Inside, laughter rippled across the dining hall, where Rebecca Hayes, CEO of Hayes and Holloway Technologies, sat surrounded by board members and investors. She looked impeccable in a black silk dress, her expression composed but her pulse pounding. Her PR team had warned her. Another rumor about being cold or incapable of relationships, and the stock might dip again. So she'd done the unthinkable, told a harmless lie at last week's press event. She had a boyfriend. Tonight, the investors expected to meet him. Her assistant leaned over, whispering, "They're asking when he'll arrive, Ms. Hayes." Rebecca's throat tightened. "He's delayed," she said smoothly, but her stomach twisted. What would she say when no one showed up? The chairman's wife was already smirking, ready to watch her stumble. That's when the commotion broke near the entrance. A small voice cried out, then the crash of glass. Every head turned. A delivery man knelt beside a little girl who had tripped, shards of a broken wine glass glittering around them. "I'm sorry, miss," he said, helping the girl up. "She didn't mean—" Rebecca saw it before anyone else did. The kindness in his eyes. The way he shielded the child from the waiter's anger. No arrogance, no performance, just simple human decency. Without thinking, she rose from her chair, heels clicking sharply, and crossed the room. "Ethan?" she said, pretending to know him. The man blinked in confusion. Ma'am?" Rebecca smiled tightly and slipped her arm through his before anyone could interrupt. "You're late," she said, loud enough for the table to hear. "Everyone, this is Ethan, my boyfriend." The entire table fell silent. Forks froze midair. Someone coughed. Ethan's face flushed as he looked down at Lily, who was now staring up in bewildered awe. "Daddy?" she whispered. His mouth opened, closed again, then curved into an uncertain smile. "Right. Yeah, sorry I'm late," he said softly, his voice steadying as he followed her lead. Dinner continued awkwardly at first, investors exchanging curious glances, Rebecca improvising stories about how they'd met by chance at a community fundraiser. Yet, as Ethan spoke, quietly, modestly, about working with his hands and fixing what's broken, something shifted in the room. The laughter softened, the tension eased, and Rebecca, against her better judgment, found herself relaxing too. After the event, she walked him outside, her composure finally cracking. "I owe you an explanation," she said. "And a favor." He gave a small, wary smile. "I'm guessing that wasn't just dinner." "No," she admitted. "I need to appear with you at a gala next weekend. Just one night. Pretend to be my boyfriend again. I'll pay you $10,000. He froze. "10 what? That's too much for a lie." "It's not about the money," she said quietly. "It's about appearances." Ethan hesitated. He thought of Lily asleep in the truck. Her small body weakened from the heart condition the doctor said would require surgery soon. $10,000 could change everything. All right, he said finally. But I don't do pretending well. Rebecca's lips curved faintly. Maybe that's what I need. Before he left, she reached into her purse and handed him a card with her number. We'll keep it professional. You'll be compensated after the gala. And thank you, Mr. Cole. As he walked back to the truck, the night air felt heavier. Lily stirred under her blanket, her eyes half open. Daddy, she mumbled. Is that lady your new friend? He smiled weakly, starting the engine. Something like that, sweetheart. Behind him, Rebecca watched from the steps, her reflection glimmering in the glass doors. For the first time in years, she'd improvised without control, and instead of fear, what she felt was curiosity. The following week, Ethan stood in front of a mirror he hadn't looked into in years, tugging awkwardly at the collar of a rented suit. The man staring back looked unfamiliar. Polished shoes, trimmed beard, a faint scent of cologne that wasn't motor oil. Rebecca's voice echoed behind him. Straighten your tie and smile, but not too much. Investors like confidence, not desperation. She stood by the dressing room door in a cream blazer, her reflection calm and commanding. Ethan managed a small grin. How's this? She tilted her head. You look like you're about to sell me a used car. He laughed for real then, and she startled a little at the sound. It wasn't forced, it was warm. That laugh would return to her later, at the strangest moments. Over the next few days, the training sessions became routine. Rebecca coached him on table etiquette, how to hold a glass of wine, even how to make small talk about art. He, in turn, showed her how to change a flat tire when her driver got stuck in the rain. Somewhere between laughter and exasperation, the walls between them thinned. Lily adored her immediately, calling her Miss Becca and drawing little hearts around their names on paper. Rebecca pretended to roll her eyes, but she pinned the drawing on her office board later that night. The gala arrived sooner than either expected. Cameras flashed as Rebecca and Ethan stepped from the limousine. She slipped her arm through his again, this time without hesitation. Just remember, she whispered, this is all for show. But when their eyes met, there was a flicker, something unspoken that neither could name. Inside, journalists whispered about the mystery boyfriend. Ethan handled the questions with simple honesty that disarmed even the most cynical of them. When someone asked about his profession, he didn't embellish. I fix engines, he said. Keeps me honest. The crowd laughed, charmed by his sincerity. Later, as the night wound down, Lily, who had stayed quietly with a babysitter nearby, wandered into the ballroom holding a balloon shaped like a heart. She ran straight to her father, tugging his sleeve. Cameras caught the moment Rebecca knelt beside her, smiling as the child whispered something in her ear. The photo went viral by morning. Rebecca Hayes' soft side, CEO's boyfriend, and his daughter's steel hearts. The media loved it. Her board loved it. For the first time in months, Rebecca wasn't being called heartless. But the article left her uneasy. She scrolled through the pictures. Lily's innocent smile, Ethan's steady hand resting protectively on her shoulder, and something in her chest twisted. She had built her image on precision, on control. Yet here she was, being seen as human for all the wrong reasons. The next evening, she drove to Ethan's apartment, a small, weathered building near the river. He opened the door, still wearing his work clothes, surprised to see her. You didn't have to come all the way here, he said. I could have met you downtown. She shook her head. I wanted to see where you live. Inside, the scent of tomato soup and detergent hung in the air. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring in a sketchbook. She beamed when Rebecca entered. Miss Becca, look, I drew us! She held up a picture. 3 stick figures, Rebecca, Ethan, and Lily, standing under a rainbow. Underneath, Lily had written, Thank you for helping my daddy smile. Rebecca froze. You drew this? For me? Lily nodded proudly. Because you make him laugh again. Something fragile cracked open inside Rebecca then. Something she'd kept buried since childhood. She crouched beside the girl. You're a very good artist, Lily. Maybe you could teach me sometime. Lily giggled. You can't even draw hearts yet? Rebecca smiled sadly. Not the right kind, maybe. That night, after Ethan tucked Lily into bed, he walked Rebecca to her car. You didn't have to bring all this kindness into our mess, he said quietly. You're paying me, remember? She looked at him then, really looked, at the weariness, the steady decency. I know, she whispered, but I don't feel like I'm the one doing the giving anymore. When she returned home, Rebecca couldn't sleep. The sketch of 3 stick figures burned in her mind. She found herself taking out her phone, opening that viral photo again. The one with Ethan and Lily laughing under the ballroom lights. For the first time in years, she smiled without calculating what it might cost her. The next morning, a message from Ethan appeared on her phone. Lily wants to know if Miss Becca is coming for dinner again. Rebecca stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the reply. Then she typed back, only if she gets to draw more hearts. The afternoon sun slanted across the small garage where Ethan worked, catching motes of dust that hung in the air like quiet memories. Rebecca sat on an overturned crate, watching as he replaced a timing belt with patient precision. He didn't talk much while he worked, but she'd learned that his silences meant something. Every turn of the wrench was a kind of prayer. Finally, she broke the quiet. You really love this, don't you? He glanced up, surprised. Fixing things? She nodded. He smiled faintly. It's the only thing I've ever been good at. Machines make sense. People, not so much. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of something deeper. She waited, and after a while he began to tell her. He met his wife, Sarah, when he was 19. She was a nursing student who laughed like she wasn't afraid of anything. They married young, and for a while life was good, simple, happy. Then came the pandemic. She worked double shifts at the hospital. One night she didn't come home. Ethan's hands tightened around the wrench. They said she caught something from a patient, tried to save a kid who couldn't breathe. His voice cracked. She died doing her job. Rebecca didn't speak. She just stood and crossed the room, handing him a rag for his hands. He took it, but didn't look at her. I promised Lily I'd never let her forget her mom, but I also promised I'd never let her see me break. His voice dropped to a whisper. Some days, that's harder than fixing any engine. For the first time, Rebecca reached out and touched his arm. You kept both promises, she said softly. That's more than most people ever do. Her words lingered in the quiet, warm and steady. She didn't tell him then that she knew exactly what it felt like, to lose a parent and still feel like a child waiting for someone to come home. Her father had left when she was 10, chasing a bigger company, a newer family, leaving behind a mother who drank to forget and a daughter who learned to pretend she didn't care. That evening, Ethan invited her and Lily to the cemetery where Sarah was buried. The sun dipped low over the hill as Lily placed a paper heart beside the headstone. Hi, Mommy, the girl whispered. Daddy smiles again now. Miss Becca helps. Rebecca's throat closed. Ethan knelt, his rough hand tracing the carved name. Sarah would have liked you, he said quietly. Rebecca blinked back tears, caught off guard by how much that meant. Later, as twilight deepened, Rebecca wandered a few rows away and saw another grave, her own mother's. She hadn't realized until then that their cemeteries were the same. Kneeling, she brushed the dust from the marble letters. Hi, Mom, she murmured. I think I finally met someone who reminds me what real looks like. Ethan watched from a distance, understanding without words. That night, after they dropped Lily home, Rebecca lingered by the river. Ethan stood beside her, both of them quiet. You ever think, he said after a long pause, That maybe broken people are the only ones who know how to fix each other? She turned to him, the wind catching her hair. Or maybe we just stop pretending we're not broken, she replied. When she returned home, the city lights glittered through her apartment windows, but she felt none of their warmth. She sat at her desk, pulling out a folder marked Charitable Allocations. Her eyes lingered on one proposal, Heartline Children's Medical Fund. The cost of Lily's surgery was roughly the same amount as the boyfriend contract she'd paid Ethan. She picked up the phone and called her financial director. I want to make a private donation, she said. Anonymous. Effective immediately. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the hospital with Lily for her regular checkup. The nurse smiled. Good news. The Heartline Foundation just approved your daughter's surgery. Full sponsorship. Ethan froze, stunned. What? I didn't apply. The nurse shrugged. Someone must have done it for you. He walked outside in a daze, holding Lily's hand, whispering, There are angels in this world, kiddo. That night, Rebecca's phone buzzed with a message from him. We just got a miracle. Don't know who to thank, but whoever it was, tell them they gave my little girl her life back. She stared at the message, her eyes filling. She typed and erased a dozen replies before finally writing, Maybe the world just pays back kindness when it finds it. She lay awake long after midnight, listening to the rain against her window, realizing that somewhere between contracts and lies, her heart had started to learn a different language, the quiet rhythm of love that asked for nothing in return. The morning the headline hit, Rebecca's world cracked open. Her face filled every screen, every feed. CEO exposed. Rebecca Hayes paid single dad to pose as her boyfriend. The article detailed every rumor, every photo, every half-truth that could turn kindness into scandal. The tone was merciless. Investors panicked. Her board demanded an emergency meeting. And the worst part, there was a picture of Ethan and Lily, their smiling faces under the caption, The $10,000 Family. She stared at the image until it blurred. The lie she thought she could control had finally turned on her. By noon, cameras were camped outside Hayes and Holloway headquarters. Rebecca walked through the lobby under a storm of flashes, jaw tight, heels striking marble. Inside the boardroom, men she'd mentored avoided her gaze. The chairman cleared his throat. Rebecca, the optics are catastrophic. The investors are withdrawing. We need you to make a statement. Deny the payments. Discredit the man if necessary. She blinked. Discredit him? He did nothing wrong. The chairman's voice hardened. Then you'll resign by end of day. For the first time in years, she felt small, like the little girl who'd once watched her father walk away from everything decent. Her throat burned, but she said nothing. She walked out, ignoring the flashes, ignoring the shouted questions, until she reached her car. Across town, Ethan was fixing an old transmission when his coworker showed him the same headline. His stomach dropped. She's getting shredded, the man muttered. Ethan grabbed his phone, found the photo of Rebecca outside the building, pale but composed, and felt something twist inside him. This woman had given his daughter a future. She didn't deserve this, not alone. That evening, he showed up at Hayes and Holloway, pushing past reporters who assumed he was there to collect more attention. When security tried to stop him, he said firmly, Tell Ms. Hayes that Ethan Cole needs 2 minutes. She'll want to hear what I have to say. Inside her office, Rebecca sat in the dark, the city lights flickering through the glass walls. The door opened. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. They'll drag you into this mess. He shook his head. Too late for that. I'm already in it. She looked up, eyes red but steady. Everything's falling apart, Ethan. They think I used you to save my image. He stepped closer. Then let me fix it. Just this once. Let me be the one who protects you. The next day, the press conference was called. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing as Rebecca took the podium. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was calm. There's been a lot said about me and about a man named Ethan Cole. Most of it is true, except for the part that matters. Yes, I paid him once because I was afraid of being seen as heartless, incapable of love. I hired an image, but what I found was a family. A murmur rippled through the crowd. She continued, "That man and his daughter reminded me of everything I forgot about kindness, courage, and love that expects nothing in return. If this costs me my company, then so be it. But don't call it a scandal. Call it what it is. A mistake that became the most honest thing I've ever done." Then a voice from the back of the room spoke. "She didn't pay me." Ethan stepped forward, holding a folded piece of paper. "I asked her to take the money back weeks ago, and that donation that saved my daughter's life? That came from her." The crowd gasped. Rebecca froze. He met her eyes. "You didn't think I'd find out," he said gently. "You think hospitals don't keep receipts?" For a moment, the room went utterly still. The flashing cameras, the murmuring reporters, all faded until only two people existed. Ethan's voice was steady. "You talk about mistakes, but what you did wasn't one." He turned to the cameras. "You want a story? Here's your story." She gave a little girl her heartbeat back. The applause started slowly, then spread through the room like a rising tide. Some reporters wiped their eyes. Others lowered their cameras, ashamed. Rebecca's composure finally broke, tears spilling as Ethan stepped up beside her, taking her hand in front of the world. "We started with a lie," he whispered, "but everything I feel is real." She squeezed his hand, voice trembling. "So is mine." Outside, the headlines shifted within hours. CEO's secret was love, not scandal. From fake boyfriend to family. For the first time, the truth didn't hurt. It healed. 1 year later, spring returned to the city, washing the skyline in gold. The headlines that once tore Rebecca apart had long faded, replaced by a quieter kind of fame, one that didn't come from profit margins or market shares, but from the lives her new foundation touched. The Heartline Foundation, named after the miracle that once saved Lily, had funded over 100 pediatric surgeries in its first 6 months. Rebecca had traded boardrooms for hospital corridors, designer gowns for soft cardigans, and endless meetings for laughter in children's wards. Ethan still worked beside her, not as an employee, but as her anchor. He managed the foundation's technical outreach, fixing everything from broken medical equipment to the coffee machine that kept the night staff alive. Sometimes Rebecca teased him that he'd replaced her entire IT department with a wrench and a smile. Their home now sat near the river where Ethan and Lily once lived. It wasn't large. 3 bedrooms, a small garden, and a wooden porch where laughter seemed to echo in the evenings. There was a swing Rebecca had built with Ethan's help, though he joked she'd mostly supervised. Lily loved it most, especially when both of them pushed her at sunset, her laughter ringing into the light. Life had simplified, but in that simplicity, Rebecca had finally found what her fortune could never buy: belonging. On Lily's 9th birthday, the house buzzed with warmth. Balloons floated across the ceiling, the scent of vanilla frosting filling the air. Ethan carried the cake out as Lily clapped her hands, cheeks glowing. Rebecca followed, holding a small wooden box tied with a red ribbon. When Lily opened it, she gasped. Inside lay a delicate heart-shaped locket and a folded note. "It's from Mommy," Rebecca said softly. Lily's eyes widened. "From my real mommy?" Rebecca nodded. "I found this while sorting through your hospital things last year. She wrote it but never got to give it to you." Ethan froze, emotion tightening his throat. Lily unfolded the paper carefully, reading aloud. "Dear Lily, if you're reading this, it means I can't be there to hold your hand. But don't ever think you're alone. Your daddy will make you laugh again, and one day, you'll meet someone who makes both your hearts whole. Love, Mommy." Her voice trembled on the last word. Rebecca's eyes glistened. Ethan stepped forward, pulling his daughter into his arms as she whispered, "I think Mommy meant you, Miss Becca." Rebecca pressed a hand to her chest, her voice barely steady. "Maybe she did, sweetheart." Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Ethan and Rebecca sat on the porch beneath the string lights they'd hung together. The river shimmered quietly in the distance. "She called you Mommy today," Ethan said, voice soft, reverent. "I know," Rebecca whispered. "I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it, but it felt right." He reached for her hand. "You gave her back her heart. You gave me back mine." She turned to him, eyes reflecting the starlight. "You did the same for me." For a long moment, they simply sat there, the silence between them more honest than words. Months passed, and their foundation grew into something far larger than either imagined. Hospitals from other states began to reach out, inspired by Rebecca's story of redemption and Ethan's quiet heroism. When a journalist asked why she had left corporate life, Rebecca smiled. "Because love doesn't need quarterly reports. It just needs showing up." Ethan, standing nearby, added, "And a good mechanic sometimes." The room laughed, but the truth in their eyes lingered. A year later, at the opening of Heartline's new children's wing, Rebecca gave a short speech. She didn't use notes this time. She looked out at the families, at the children running through the hallways, and said, "We built this not out of guilt, but out of gratitude, for the second chances life gives when we choose to love instead of hide." Then she looked toward the front row, where Ethan and Lily were waiting. "And for the little girl who taught me what courage looks like." Lily waved, grinning wide. The audience stood in applause. That evening, when the guests had gone, Ethan walked Rebecca to the rooftop garden above the hospital. The air smelled faintly of jasmine. He pulled something from his pocket, a small silver band, simple and unadorned. "No contracts this time," he said quietly. "Just a promise to stay." Rebecca blinked back tears. "And if I say yes?" "Then we finally stop pretending it started as a lie." She laughed softly, the sound trembling with joy. "Yes," she whispered, "for as long as this heart keeps beating." Below them, the hospital lights flickered like a constellation, and somewhere in the children's wing, Lily's voice echoed as she sang "Happy Birthday" to the newest patient. Rebecca leaned into Ethan's shoulder, watching the stars. Sometimes love doesn't arrive dressed in perfection or wrapped in wealth. Sometimes it shows up in a contract, a broken engine, a small act of kindness that rewrites the story you thought was over. And when it does, you hold on. Because miracles aren't accidents. They're choices made by people brave enough to love again. Sometimes the love that saves us doesn't come wrapped in perfection. It starts as a lie, a deal, or a desperate act of kindness. But when hearts choose truth over pride, even the broken can learn to beat together again. If this story reminded you that family is something we build, not something we're born into, take a second to share it with someone who still believes in second chances. And if you'd like to feel more stories like this one, stories of healing, hope, and unexpected love, stay with us here on Soul Stirring Tales.